Hello and welcome to Business Today with me, Arunodaya Mukherjee. All right, in the coming few hours, Australia's central bank will begin its two-day meeting. Experts are hopeful of a rate cut sometime this year, but the RBA is expected to keep rates as they are for now. Well, last week, a number of central banks tweaked monetary policy. Let's take you through all the developments that we covered all of last week. Well, the Bank of England delivered its first rate cut in 4 years, citing lower inflation. Then the Bank of Japan hiked rates for the second time in 17 years due to consumer prices edging up. And then finally, of course, we were looking at what the US Federal Reserve did. Well, they decided to hold steady, but Fed Chair Jerome Powell hinted at a potential rate cut in September. All right, let's turn to financial analyst Peter Maguire for more on this. Peter, thank you very much for coming up on the program as always. Peter, so what do you think will be in the minds of policymakers, the RBA, as they consider what to do next?
Well, I think it's many different facets they're going to look at, and they naturally take on board the inflation numbers, job numbers, what's happening with housing. And I think the view at the moment is probably to sit pat. We understand what happened last week, and probably a 25 basis point cut is pretty much baked in by sometime by December. So that seems to be the mood across the RBA, the fabric of it.
And we've heard a lot about prices of groceries in supermarkets in Australia. It seems wages are not keeping up with the rise in prices. What's really it been like there on the ground?
Well, I think there's a lot of hurt on Main Street naturally. You know, the youth, certainly everyone's feeling it as far as consumption. Credit card debt is pretty much maxed out, and all of those impacts rolling across to rent, to fuels, to services and everything else. So yes, there's a lot of hurt, and people are looking for some form of respite in the sense of a cut in interest rates, which in turn impacts naturally mortgage and the big costs per month.
Right. And Peter, the Asia-Pacific region is looking towards the US and a potential rate cut. Is that the same sentiment there prevailing in Australia?
I think so. I think we're probably sitting back to see where it rolls as far as the Fed. And naturally, there's a lot of central banks doing similar sort of tactics. And they're just thinking, right, are we going to see a 50 basis point cut in September by the Fed? Is it going to be 25? Where's that going to move? And naturally, you've got an election 3 months today. So all of those sort of moving parts need to be considered from any central banker.
Right. And Peter, given that Australia is an export-driven economy, how do you see the consumption patterns in countries like China and Japan impacting Australia?
Well, this is the issue. I think you've got weaker growth than probably we would have liked, naturally, and certainly China would have liked. So that's an impact as far as exports and consumption. But I think overall, we've just got to keep on motoring through, and hopefully 25 is going to be a better year or more supportive year as far as our export-driven economy to the likes, as you mentioned, China and Asia and pretty much Japan.
All right, Peter Maguire, we'll leave it there then. Thank you very much for your time here on Business Today.